Officials from the Public Service and Administration Department and National Treasury briefed Parliament's Portfolio Committee on the elimination of ghost employees in the public sector. The Office of the Auditor-General also told the committee of overpayment of salaries to ghost employees in Mpumalanga's Education Department. National Treasury says it has launched a data-driven audit of ghost employees and irregularities across national and provincial government departments. Let's now discuss why this issue persists in the public sector with the Budget Justice Coalition Chairperson, Matshidiso Lencoasa. Matshidiso, very good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Quite shocking, some of those numbers that came out of that meeting in Parliament. I mean, National Treasury saying that when looking at ghost employees and the payments made irregularly across national and provincial departments, these salaries accounted for 60% of expenditure.
Phew. Yeah, no, you're right. This is absolutely shocking and egregious in a state where, you know, this year the budget has been something of contention. National Treasury had proposed, you know, VAT increases, and if not a VAT increase, then a general fuel levy, which which would generate about 4 billion rand, which is exactly how much they've been able to recover from these ghost employees. And I think what really is upsetting, and I think what us as the Budget Justice Coalition have been long calling for, is greater Parliament oversight in this, which we welcome. The reason being that, you know, with these ghost employees, every ghost employee is replacing what should be a warm body, a teacher in the case of the Mpumalanga Department of Education, but nurses, you know, in Gauteng Health, for example, that should be allocated. And what we end up having is a public service that is there's overcrowding, and there's not enough resources and not enough personnel there. But at the same time, we're spending so much money, or losing so much money to such fraudulent behavior.
And I think what's important is to get to the root cause. What would you say are those systemic issues that allow for the persistence of these ghost employees to exist within our systems?
Yeah, so I think that the first issue is that there's a lack of capacity and consequence management across the provinces. So to hear of ghost employees, unfortunately, it's not the first time we've heard of this. I think there have been murmurs of ghost employees in Mpumalanga Department of Education since 2021, 2022, and yet we don't really see any consequences of it. So we hear reports, but nothing actually gets done for it. And I think if there is a sense of, there's no oversight or there are no consequences, well, this can continue. So I think that's the first issue. And then the second being that there seems to be a capacity issue across the provinces in terms of implementation. We see that in underspending, but also in attempting to, resolve issues of fraudulent behavior. And it really is the ordinary, everyday South Africans who bear the burden of this inaction or the lack of political will to actually account for this. And so that's why we welcome the interventions by National Treasury or Parliament finally hearing our cry, because we've made submissions around this for years, because this could be an opportunity to really reallocate all that funding to actually equipping the public sector to be able to overcome overcrowding and deliver quality public basic services.
I mean, speaking about just the public being the ones to bear the brunt of this, you spoke of 4 billion rands that has been recovered so far with regards to these ghost employees. How much of this really is affecting service delivery on the ground?
So this is a huge problem because it is a violation of people's constitutional rights to public services, be it education, health, or otherwise. And so the impact of that is that, on the one hand, like these ghost employees, they overstate how much personnel we actually have in the public sector. And so we have issues where many people are complaining that we have a bloated public sector, but when you go to public facilities, there are just not enough nurses or doctors or teachers. And this happens in a context when there's such high levels of unemployment in our country, where there are millions of people who are ready to serve their communities and countries and be absorbed into public services, who are just not able to find employment. So we really do see this. I mean, it is disappointing that there doesn't seem to be any consequences that are attached to this. We know that there's been allocations to ghost employees, but we don't know what then, who's doing it, what's happening. But we hope that this is a first step in ensuring that we can actually replace all of this and reallocate it towards building a public sector that actually serves all South Africans, ensuring that every single rand of taxpayer money that's supposed to be going towards paying for doctors, nurses, teachers, actually ends up going to the intended beneficiaries.
I mean, I think that was my next question to you in terms of who's benefiting from these ghost employees. Who's this money going to?
Yeah, and I think that's the question that we would like to have. And I think also Parliament is calling for that. And that's why we welcome this parliamentary oversight, because it can't just be, oh, we've been able to tackle this. But this is a problem. You know, this is not a victimless crime or victimless fraud. There are implications to that. There are real life implications to the rights to the quality of healthcare or education services that people in this country are feeling. And so we're really hoping for the way forward to be rooted in what's in the best interest of people in this country. And that includes consequence management, to at least send out a message to ensure that every single rand, that we're serious in an economy that's currently not growing and not enough investment in personnel in the public sector wage bill. But we're hoping that this is the first step in redirecting those funds to ensuring that we replace the ghosts with actual warm bodies in the public services.
And I mean, having ghost employees just distorts in how you plan and manage a lot of your finances.
Absolutely, and it really does distort the real life, as I explained earlier, and we're having this conversation with my colleague Alia Chikte about how when you look at the numbers, you think that there's a lot more. You know, we already have understaffed public services. And so to know that some of that understaffing, the funding that goes towards paying for personnel is actually not going to real people. It's going towards fraudulent behavior. That is really egregious in this context, especially also in this unemployment context that we find ourselves as a country. And so we are disappointed, but also hopeful that this can be a first step in terms of prioritizing this in terms of political will, and that the response also that government does is not to just say, oh, we found this nearly 4 billion rand that's sitting here, we're going to take it and repay debt or something, but actually use that money to actually equip the public service to build the capacity of provinces to identify when this fraudulent behavior happens, but also to build the capacity of the state by ensuring that there are enough doctors, nurses, teachers, and other public service personnel to actually, serve the people of our country and fulfill the constitutional rights that everybody deserves to have realized.
So Matshidiso, does this then change the narrative of us having a bloated public servants wage bill?
Yes, so I think, and I've done an interview on the public sector wage bill where there are misconceptions, because on the one hand, we have National Treasury and other departments who have said that we spend too much money and they're trying to reduce the public sector wage bill. But if you go into a public health facility or a public school, what we see in communities is that there's actually not enough nurses, not enough doctors. And so I think this could be an opportunity to redirect the funding to ensure that every rand that we have been taxing to ensure that we have nurses, doctors, teachers actually goes towards that. I hope that this is the first step in doing that. But really, unfortunately, in South Africa, we do have understaffed public health facilities, and that is something that we urgently need to address. And this situation of ghost employees does not make it better. And if anything, it just it downplays the real life experiences of people on the ground who are using public services.
I mean, you mentioned how the Budget Justice Coalition has for years been trying to address some of these issues with government. We know that we're going to the local government elections next year, and a lot of the times we often feel as citizens that when we have our say is only when we get to the ballot box and we make that mark. How important is it for civil society to regroup themselves and really stand up for some of these issues that are affecting us as communities?
I think it's incredibly important, especially as you mentioned, leading up to local government elections, because I think one thing that could really help in addressing corruption and issues like that is for people to take ownership of funding. So when we hear about taxes and debt or national debt and stuff, often it feels far removed from people, but really it is our money that we're paying. So all these ghost employees, it is a theft of public resources and people's money. And so I think that this has been a problem, but we're really trying to build a budget and a public service that works for all people, and that includes taking ownership. And so we hope that with this, it means that, you know, maybe there'll be greater oversight and scrutiny also at a community level, where people who use public services can have can implement social audits. And so we go across across the provinces and to communities to equip people to be able to report when they say that, you know, National Treasury allocated this much money to your public clinic to hire a certain number of nurses, but they're not enough. You know, the numbers don't add up. I think that this is an important opportunity for oversight from the ground up. So, yeah.
Certainly. Matshidiso, thank you so much for your time and the efforts that you're making in ensuring that some of these issues are highlighted within our communities. And I hope it really does inspire many more for us to be looking, like you say, in our immediate communities and seeing what is happening so that we can all stand up. Thank you for your time. That is Matshidiso Lencoasa, who's the Budget Justice Coalition Chairperson.